Hello, everyone. I hope you can all hear us well. I'm delighted to welcome you all for this marketing reboot. Today, I have the pleasure to be speaking with Lucy May. Hello, Lucy May.
Hi Thibaut, hi everyone.
We're all good, thank you. And there's also Greg, as always. Hello, Greg.
Hi Thibaut, hi everyone.
So thanks for being with us today. It is actually the last marketing reboot this year. So it's a great pleasure to talk today about customer engagement. Yes, we thought it would be really interesting to talk about customer engagement because everyone's talking about it. But we wanted to know today what really research tells us about it. And this is a critical topic. It's actually a good thing that so many people talk about customer engagement. We've been talking previously. I'm sure you've attended our past reboots. If not, you can all find us on our website. We've been talking previously on attitudes in marketing, on what great thinkers say about this. And this has been a very active stream of research, customer engagement over the years, because it is a major concern for brands today. And so it's a great thing that everyone is talking so much about it because it is so central nowadays in all the marketing action plans. So very quickly, let's talk a little bit about engagement. We see it everywhere. Obviously, social made it extremely popular. A lot of issues with measurements came with the likes, the shares, the follows. And some people actually in the press talked about engagement as being the true currency. And as we'll see a little bit further down this presentation, it is not wrong to say that engagement is the currency. Just think about it. When there is no transactional data, which is the case in most cases still now in digital marketing, when you have no transactional data, what should be then the ultimate KPI? And most likely at some point you are going to end up on something you like to call engagement. So this is why we decided to dedicate a full reboot to this critical topic of engagement. So the first question is obviously how to define engagement, and we'll be looking at this with you, Greg.
Yes, thanks Thibaut. There indeed have been many attempts to define the concept of engagement, either directly or indirectly at some point. It all started in 1966, actually, with the French researcher Marcel Marc, who published an article in which he looked at the reasons why consumers choose a magazine. And he wrote in 66 that engagement is somebody's disappointment if the magazine stopped being published, interestingly. So engagement describes as a kind of attachment here. More recently, we have the definition from Smith, who defines engagement as the result of disseminating messages that are meaningful, that resonate with consumers, and that make them passionate and involved in the brand. So in a more concrete way, we have an interesting quote from Yahoo VP Mark Laughlin in 2001, who said that operationally engagement defines on two key dimensions. The first one being loyalty, the second one being usage, loyalty as the retention of unique users, and usage as the average time spent on a given experience or the number of page views, for instance. So Yahoo has been quite early phase in defining engagement, Thibaut.
Yes, absolutely. And sometimes we don't realize how defining the right concepts with the right metrics can actually be a war or a battle. in the field of digital marketing. And I wanted to share here the patent that Yahoo actually presented for its first measurement of user engagement. See, that is 2006. Two inventors from Yahoo actually filed this patent, which is called Techniques for Measuring User Engagement. So I'm not going to go into details about how they wanted to measure and decided to measure which formula they used at Yahoo back then. But the interesting thing, it happens to be very close to what we'll show you later on, which is the Numberly way of measuring engagement. So yes, Yahoo has been very active in the field, and yes, it is a battle because somehow it's the holy grail to be able to measure in the right way with the right metrics engagement.
So if we go back to academic research to finally define engagement, the field of research on engagement is quite recent, 15 years old actually. And interestingly, there is no consensus on the definition of consumer engagement. And we can see that there are 4 different approaches that coexist to define the concept. The first one defines engagement as a psychological state, which is the level of motivation of a consumer and his state of mind toward a company in a specific context. So the first approach, engagement is an attitude. The second one defines engagement as an interactive process. It defines as active interactions between a consumer and the company or with other prospects or customers. So engagement in this second approach is a result of active interactions. We have a third approach that defines engagement as a value-creating behavior. Any kinds of behaviors that creates value for the brand. It could be a website visit, a loyalty program membership, for instance. Engagement equals behavior. And finally, this is probably the most recent approach in research. Authors did not wish, in a way, to take any risk and speak of a mix between kind of behaviors and attitudes. And engagement can manifest itself in cognitive, affective, and behavioral ways. So it should be a mix between an attitude and, at some point, revealing behaviors of engagement.
So thank you, Greg. This is something we now have a definition, but Lucy May, we need you to better understand what really are the antecedents of engagement. Can you help us on that?
Yes. So indeed, today we use the word engagement, but there are actually different levels, different aspects of the engagement. And there are 2 different words that we can use to describe what engagement actually is. The first antecedent to engagement is commitment. In other words, the persistent desire to maintain a valuable relationship. And commitment can be cognitive. By this, we mean that you have no other choice. You're committed to the brand because the other alternatives are simply not attractive. And commitment can also be emotional. You just have a deep bond with the brand. You share common values and you trust the brand. The other antecedent is involvement, and it's the perceived interest of a person in relations to his needs and his own interests. So basically, it's a motivation to search for information. And involvement is very different. To give you an example, it'll be very different when you're trying to buy a bottle of water, for example, than when you're looking for a house to buy. Another really good example to this is the following. When you're cooking an eggs and bacon breakfast, what is the difference between the chicken and the pig? The chicken is involved. It's there. It's his egg, but the pig is committed, of course, because the pig is the bacon. Now, if we move on and look at researchers who contributed to the concept of engagement, it's really hard to build a top three, but there are three great thinkers that we wanted to mention here. One European woman and two Americans. The first one on the left-hand side is Linda Holbeck. For her, engagement is an interactive process. It's dynamic. A consumer can provide resources like their social media account, like having an influence. Then we have Kumar in the middle, who's one of the most quoted marketing authors since 2005. He's brought a strong contribution to the concept of customer lifetime value and to the notion of return on investment. What we mean here is that you can measure every action and what it generates for you as a brand. And the idea, of course, is to identify the most valuable customers to you. Last but not least, we have Edward Malthouse, who says that engagement is like a sweet spot when a consumer realizes that a brand can help achieve personal goals, life goals.
Thank you so much, Lucy May. So now we have clarified the origins of engagement. Let's get to the heart of the matter. What are really the effects of engagement? And the first article to look at is really the one by Kumar again, who defined very clearly the effects of engagement with his concept of customer engagement value, CEV. And he explains that it's actually a combination of four types of value. Obviously, transaction, customer lifetime value, CLV, you know that. We've been going through that in past reboots. The second one is customer referral value. So it's really about the ability to refer other customers, and that generates value, and that is part of engagement. The third one is influence, obviously positive ones that you can have as a customer on other clients on social media. So this is CIV, and the last component is CKV, K being knowledge, so customer knowledge value, which is about giving feedback and product service ideas. The combination of those four factors, Kumar says, make the CEV, the customer engagement value. So now, Greg, let's talk a little bit about the ecosystem here.
Yes, thanks, Thibaut, because Kumar is definitely outcome driven in the sense that everything is measured in terms of financial results, including indirect variables, by the way. So we can wonder how these dimensions that Kumar has in his book are materialized. That's why the next article we wanted to share is a great one by Ed Malthouse. We just mentioned him a moment before. And his work is extremely relevant because it defines engagement as indeed an ecosystem that includes four key dimensions. So let's open the black box of engagement according to Malthouse. So the four dimensions are the following. The first one being the brand experience, which is something lived by a given customer. This could range from a day at Disneyland, saying it was a magical day, to even a purchase on Amazon.com saying I was delivered within an hour. So we always live a brand experience. Then we have the second dimension, purchasing behavior, everything related to recency, frequency, customer lifetime value. That is something well known in marketing. If we move on, we have interesting dimensions. The third one is brand conception. We may consume a brand in multiple ways, according to Malthouse. For example, looking for information on Amazon.com or spending an hour on the Mini Cooper online simulator to design a car with no intention to purchase one. In a way, you are consuming a brand in an alternative way. And then we have to finish the fourth dimension, which is dialogue behaviors with the brand. Example, we all have examples in mind of an influencer who makes a new tutorial on YouTube or Instagram on a new product range. So it's unexpected. in a way. I have a consumer who starts a dialogue and I have to respond to such dialogue. This is the 4 key dimension of the engagement ecosystem.
Thank you, Greg. But let's all be very cautious because customer engagement can also be negative. You can think of unsubscriptions, you can think of negative word of mouth, you can think of negative content, UGC. All this is obviously very dangerous for the brand. It can destroy value. And as a consequence, each brand should be able to measure and track and identify such behaviors, especially because engagement can change over time. You can go from very positive to negative engagement, and you obviously want to exclude your detractors from any kind of media exposure. On the next slide, we wanted to all wonder why engagement had become so popular in the last 10 years. And the reason for that is very simple, is because we've learned so much about the value of engaged clients. Engaged customers, they're more loyal, they're more satisfied, they're willing to contribute to the development of new products or services. They want to obviously buy the brand again, and they're viral. So, which means they will recommend the company to others and they will increase this referral value we've been talking about, this word of mouth. So, all these are the consequences, really, the effects of engagement. Now we wanted to discuss a little bit how we could measure engagement. And Lucy May, I think you have some fantastic material about that.
Yeah, so basically we've seen that there are 2 schools of thought when it comes to engagement, one that focuses on attitudes and the other on behaviors. When you're looking at measuring engagement, well, it's the same. And the first way to measure engagement is through attitudes, which is what we have here. To measure engagement, you're going to use questionnaires and measuring scales. And the most famous measuring scale is called COBRA, for Consumer Online Brand Related Activities. What it says is that the levels of investment of consumers are heterogeneous. Some of your customers are going to be passive, and that is the bottom of the slide and of the scale. They're just consuming your brand. The next level is when your customer contributes to your brand. So it's someone who's going to rate products, who follow you on social media, who comment on the content that you're posting. And then finally, right at the top of this scale, which is the last level of engagement, you have the highest level of engagement, you have creators. That's customers who are going to write, create, and publish content for you and about your brand. This scale is actually the most adapted today to measure attitudinal dimensions of engagement. The second way of measuring engagement is using behaviors. We're looking here at modelization or scoring of engagement. If you start on the left-hand side, first of all, we're looking at individual behaviors like purchases, but also visits on a website. You mentioned that, Greg, already, likes on social media, reactions to a marketing campaign. This is really the first step to building an engagement score. You're listing all the possible behaviors of your customers and prospects for your brand. With those behaviors, you're then, and this is the second step, you're then going to define a target behavior of engagement. In other words, what are you going to value for your brand? Then you are going to weight each of these behaviors. I'll give you an example, but a purchase might be worth more than a visit, for example. But you can also weight those behaviors based on their recency. So a visit that was made in the last 7 days might weigh more than a visit that was made in the last 6 months, for example. With all of that, you're then able to calculate and assign a score to each individual as a sum of his or her behaviors and interactions, and you have an engagement score for each individual.
Thank you, Lucy May. An example for this is the use case with BIC, which produces razors and stationery. BIC in the US had asked us, Numberly, a while ago to build their customer data platform. And so in that platform, we would store all the media interactions, all the website interactions with all their consumers, because obviously it's a CPG company, so they have no transactional data. So I remember a great conversation with the CMO of BIC US who told me, look, I want to think and act like a retailer. The problem is I have no transactional data. So let's build an engagement score, just the way you would present it, Lucy May, to actually set a hierarchy of consumers, set a hierarchy of visitors. And this is what we did based on time spent, depth of visit, number of revisits, actions on the website. All these could compute an engagement score that could then help us set a hierarchy between consumers, between visitors, and also between search terms, for instance, so we could then compare the impact of keywords such as big razors versus whatever, big lighters, for instance, or big pens. Well, they all have, if you had transactional data, you would have a conversion rate at the end to set a hierarchy between those different keywords. If you don't have transactional data because it's a CPG, you need something. And the missing link, the KPI, then becomes the engagement score. That's why it's so critical. And you can then use that to customize retargeting strategies. This is what we did on the latest ICOM prize for the behavioral science innovation. We ended up finalist with this great use case, which is an engagement-based scoring algorithm to achieve individual level bidding in retargeting. So the first step here is to build an engagement score and then to use it in retargeting strategies.
Thanks, Thibaut. It is clear that we can see a great shift to behavioral metrics to measure engagement. And indeed, it is increasingly possible to track many different behaviors from email reactions, newsletters, website visit, purchases, loyalty program data. So the challenge in a way is no longer to collect such data, but to make it speak. And this raises key questions for the future of marketing research on engagement, saying, what if we could infer attitudes from specific target behaviors? This is obviously a very promising topic, as we could at some point design campaigns personalized to a diversity of attitudes, from negative ones to positive ones. This could shape future strategies for data collection to focus on the most significant behaviors or interaction to be tracked in the relationship. So for long, research has studied the link between attitudes on one side and behaviors on the other by working with questionnaires, surveys, and variables such as purchase intention. And we start exploring the link between behaviors and attitudes by identifying who has clicked on an email, who has visited my website recently, who has become a loyalty program member. And we just started a 3-year research on that topic, a PhD. This is very promising, and we look forward to sharing with you the very first results of how to infer attitudes from specific engagement behavior.
Thank you, Greg. Now that we've seen where engagement comes from, we've seen the effects of it, we've seen how to measure it, and now the question is, how can you generate engagement? There are 3 techniques to generate customer engagement, which are personalization, marketing-generated content, and gamification. The first one is personalization. Now, with personalization, you have to be cautious because personalization can increase, or actually, on the contrary, it can decrease customer engagement. Personalization has to be relevant for your customer and each individual. It mustn't be too intrusive. There is indeed a risk with personalization to generate the opposite of engagement. For example, when a customer judges the use of his or her personal data inappropriate, which might have happened to you already, and is also known as the creepiness factor. So you have to use personalization wisely. The second one is brand content. Again, brand content has to be consistent with the brand values. It's one way to generate midterm engagement, the goal being here to build brand appreciation and to build trust. And it's very different from advertising. Advertising has a more short-term goal, which is sales. With brand content, what you're trying to do is educate your customers and building a relationship, building trust with your customers. Last but not least, gamification. This is something that comes from the concept of video games, and that allows social interactions with your customers to generate engagement. I'll give you two examples. The first one being achievement-related gamification features. For example, when you're, I don't know, logged into one of your loyalty accounts, you can see virtual money, you can see points, you can see progression bars. This is a way of gamifying the experience for your customers. The second one is social interactions, social interaction-related gamification features, things like blogs, like chats, like competitions. You've got lots of examples for this one as well, and that's also a key way to generate engagement.
Thanks, Lucime. Just before we conclude, we could not miss this pretty recent article from Harmeling and his colleagues that proposes a very useful framework to generate engagement. And what that's, it's because it reminds us that customers, in a way, leverage resources to engage with brands. It could be their power of influence, their brand knowledge, their creativity. And in response, the articles say that brands could leverage two different kinds of strategy that are really unequally explored: work and play. Having a work strategy refers to task oriented engagement, comment, click, post a comment, sponsor others, a user, for instance. And having a play strategy refers to engagement, which is based on living and reflecting an experience that you live. It could be social media, content generation, events, for instance. And you do remember on the long run experiences that you have lived. That's why such strategy is proved to be more effective in the long term to generate engagement. So this is really an invitation from academic research to explore more and more play strategies in generating engagement.
Thank you, Greg, for this invitation. The research community is always very keen on inviting everybody to do research as well with them. But it's time to reboot already. So we saw three main things today. The first thing, what is engagement? We saw that it's really a value-creating customer behavior. It can be direct, like with purchases. It can be indirect, with word of mouth. But in any case, it's an index of future loyalty or current or future loyalty. The second thing we saw is what really is an engaged customer. So it's someone who will be more satisfied, more loyal, more inclined to give positive feedback. In short, we're talking about someone who will invest much more in the relationship. That's why this notion of commitment that Lucy May, you beautifully explained with the chicken and pig question. And last, how to create engagement. It is actually necessary to create value for the customer. And we have different strategies with digital that can be used either with relevant personalization or with brand content or playful designs. So this is it for today. Thanks for having us. Maybe we can take one question, Greg. I think we had a couple already. So how about this one? Which customer behaviors express engagement and therefore an attitude?
Thanks, Thibaut. And yes, this is really a good question that takes us back to the link between attitudes and behaviors when we talked about engagement. You can measure with surveys and questionnaires items such as satisfaction, net promoter score, NPS, loyalty intention, and the Cobra scale is actually a way to do it. But very often, engagement is measured and is analyzed based on the answers given in the survey. So we should all ask ourselves, should we be looking at behaviors in this process, like completing the survey versus not completing the survey, opting in versus opting out, becoming a member of a loyalty program versus not becoming a member of the loyalty program? This could be a great way to measure directly engagement with behaviors, as such behaviors could predict engagement better than the actual answers that were given in the survey. So the very first results we have reveal that indeed behaviors are really powerful in predicting engagement, and the link between attitudes and behaviors tends at some points to be reversed compared to what we used to do in marketing.
Thank you, Greg. It's the end already. Thank you all for watching us over the months this year. Thank you, Lucy May. Thank you, Greg, both of you. Great topic to finish this year with engagement. And we want to all invite you to our next webinar in 2021. We have a fantastic panel on luxury marketing. 2021 Luxury Odyssey, from e-com to CRM, which challenges ahead. So thank you all. Have a great day and stay safe and enjoy the holiday.